Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Basically, today we are going to discuss about Formula Award. Basically, till now, basically we have already discussed eight part basically, and this is ninth part. Basically, we can say. So in ninth part, basically, we are going to discuss that how basically Formula Award is connecting up to the level. Basically, this we can say, and up to what level the word is getting connected and how basically government give punishment to the people basically who are doing bad to them basically. For example, one person has told something bad about the Indian cricket team. Some person has told something bad about the Indian government. Some person basically told bad about the Supreme Court. One person told bad about the High Court. One person told bad about the Prime Minister. One person told bad about the Chief Minister. Like this, basically each and everything basically they tracks. Like this, basically they tracks, and they never think that basically why he has told bad. Basically, if they think one time basically why he has told bad, then basically all the problems of the India will get washed out basically. But these people only know how to give punishment. So he has told bad, that means he has to give the punishment. That's all. So basically, punishment basically like this they basically give. We have already discussed little bit more things. Basically, we are going to discuss. For example, human body basically the Earth planet have 24 hours basically. So basically, just see up to what level calculation the Indian governments do basically to give the punishment basically. So basically, in punishment, basically doctors also helps them basically because doctors don't have any option because otherwise they will cancel the license basically of the doctor. So doctor also have to support. So doctor also supported. So now basically the thing is basically 24 hours basically human have 24 hours with the Earth planet have. So basically 24 hours basically human have to take the oxygen. That is confirmed. Now basically how basically they give the punishment. So basically, for example, he has eaten, for example, 3 days before he has taken some rice, some pani puris, some vada pav, some samosas, and some rice and some dal and then some sabji basically. Like this, he had the food basically, morning, dinner and afternoon basically, and some snacks basically in evening time basically. Like this, basically, entire combination food he has taken. So that food combination has generated one blood cells basically. So whenever basically you take the foods, so basically next day basically blood cells automatically get generates, and that blood cells is collected by the government. That is basically energy power company. Basically how they collect the blood cells, sorry, energy data basically. That basically is power supply, automate power supply system is created. Like this basically they that is basically a big topic basically how they collect the power data basically of the human body basically. So like this basically they collected the power supplies, sorry, power data of the human bodies basically. And like this basically they taken 3 days body structure data basically, blood cells data of the person. And then basically they know basically the blood cells is already generated, so we can do anything within. We have to do something in from this blood cells basically. So like this basically they decided, so basically whenever basically in 24 hours they are going to pass this oxygen, poison oxygen in his body basically because he has eaten this whole thing. So basically the government have power to give oxygen to each and every human. That basically everybody knows basically. So basically without oxygen you can't stay. That also basically government knows basically. So what, each and every human takes oxygen, and that oxygen basically gets converts that basically gets automatically to their system, automatically gets into their body according to the blood cells basically, which is active that time basically. So basically in 24 hours, the as many blood cells gets activated, whatever activities he is doing, according to that activities basically the blood cells gets activated, and according to the blood cells what activated his oxygen supply basically gets connects automatically basically. So this is basically one system, for basically human basically for 24 hours basically how human takes the oxygen basically. So in this basically this data basically government already have, so the government have the power to pass the oxygen in between of the oxygen of 24 hours ongoing. So this is clear basically. Like this basically, why basically we are discussing this into formula basically, because in each and every formula which PMP has created, PMP group has created, that base is this only which we are discussing just now. So like this basically the human body gets basically 24 hours power supply, 24 hours oxygen, the required one 24 hours oxygen. And that oxygen basically is basically one calculation basically you can say. If you take this type of oxygen, then basically your body structure is fit and fine, and you never gets a disease basically, bimari basically you can say. You never get any type of problem basically. But if you are getting good power supply, sorry, power oxygen according to the power supply company basically which they pass basically, like this basically they um, passed the damage head power supply inside this person's oxygen supply basically, with the help of mobile, and with the help of mobile company, with the help of sim card company, and with the help of laptop and mobile computer company basically. Like this basically they have passed the oxygen, and then basically they know that single person's data structure they already know basically. So according to that basically they have collected each and every information basically of that particular person's body. Like this basically they have passed the information which oxygen they are taking basically, that person is taking. So like this basically like this basically he got the head damage power supply oxygen data from the set of power companies with the help of, because power supply company directly can't pass the power data, that poison oxygen data directly to this their body basically. There are set of chains which connects to, for example in house basically how many things are which is basically connecting to the power supply directly. That is basically computer, that is laptop, that is basically mobile. Then basically some foods are there basically that basically directly connects to. So like this basically these are the source basically. On the base of source basically the power supply company can connect to that person basically. So like this basically they connected to that person and passed the poison oxygen to that person for 3 days basically. And the fourth day basically he's got head damage, his head was damaged. And like this basically due to head was damaged he was in ICU for few days, and then basically he was hospitalized. And he actually don't remember some his name also sometime basically, what he was his name was he, that also he was forgotten. So just to see the torture of Indian government basically. But Indian government never think positively, that why basically he has told bad about the cricket team, why basically he has told the bad about the political people, why he has bad told about the Indian software company, why he has told bad about the Indian human resource company, why he has told bad about some other people basically, businessmen. They never think that basically. They only know to give the punishment. That's all. That also with the help of high courts and supreme court basically, because whatever oxygen you gets in 24 hours, that is 100% approved by the high courts and supreme courts. And this is basically monthly data and weekly data which is getting approved by the high courts and supreme courts basically. So these groups only pass the oxygen power supply data basically, that which type of oxygen is going to be taken by the certain people. So basically they pass the power supply according to the blood group. Some time basically they pass the special power supply for the particular person. Sorry, they approves the special power supply basically. Whatever power supply and oxygen basically is going to taken by the each and every person, that data is already collected by the set of power companies and power energy companies. And that data for each and every people is passed to the Supreme Court, and then Supreme Court and High Court, and they basically pass that whether they want to approve or not. Basically, like this, basically they approve the oxygen also, and like this, basically they have passed the poison oxygen, and like this, basically his head was damaged. Basically, so like this basically this is basically one formula you can say to damage the head basically. So like this exactly opposite of this basically, that is basically he takes the medicine, and then basically the um, formula becomes totally different. That is basically repair head cells basically. But basically once the head is damaged, that is basically lifetime punishment, basically you can say, got to that person by the Indian government, by the Indian high courts, by the Indian supreme courts, by the Indian software companies, by the Indian human resource. Basically, this all have given lifetime punishment. Basically, you can say to that guy, to by damaging the head and by damaging his head. Basically, so this is basically we are discussing the formula keyword. That is basically ninth part. Basically, in tenth part, basically we are going to discuss more about the formula word, what is the base of the PMP formula word, and basically what are the base of the each and every formulas which has already created by the project management plan groups.